the nights get longer and colder, thousands of street kids across the country huddle in back alleys, under balconies, and over sewer grates for warmth. To them, the street is home. But some of these youngsters are getting a chance to start new lives, thanks to a unique program set up by two former street kids in Toronto. It's called Beat the Street. Now, many of these kids who have only known rejection are learning about some new R words, like reading, writing, and arithmetic.
What happened to you, man? I've been here since like a quarter after 12.
You get your jacket there?
Downtown Toronto is home to some 10,000 street kids, young people on the run, from foster homes, institutions, from family violence and abuse. These kids often survive by panhandling, stealing, or selling sex and drugs. Their only school is the street. It's a world Tracy LeQuyere, educator, activist, one-time money runner, and confidence trickster, has come to know well. LeQuyere is co-founder of Beat the Street, an educational program that helps street kids learn to read, catch up on misschooling.
My name's Tracy, right? My name's Tracy. I run a street kid program. You listening to what I'm saying? A street kid program, where street kids are helping each other. How's that? You with me on that? How many are with me? Street kids helping each other? Can we do it?
LeQuyere, who couldn't read until he was 33 years old, believes in taking education to the street, in getting street kids to help each other. With evangelical zeal, he preaches literacy on street corners to anyone who will listen.
How many are dropouts? Yeah? So most of you drop out? How many went to that thing called...
I figured that I have something to sell, okay? Every salesperson, as far as I'm concerned, is a con artist. Their product is the best, okay? So that's what I'm doing. I'm selling literacy. I'm telling you it's a problem, and it is a problem. But more so than that, I'm not just saying it's a literacy problem. I'm telling you it's a solvable problem.
LeQuyere knows what he's up against. Most kids live from day to day, get caught up in the ugly politics of street deals and rivalries.
This is what happens when you rat on somebody.
This kid was chased, cornered, and beaten up by other street kids on Toronto's Yonge Street. There were no witnesses and no charges laid.
No, but you have to understand something. If she goes downtown, it's not the fear of going downtown for her. It's the fear she's going to get her head punched in again by somebody.
Rick Parsons is a middle-aged veteran of the street wars. He's co-founder of Beat the Street, a self-taught educator who never graduated from elementary school.
No problem.
These kids can't snow Parsons. He spent his life communicating with his fists.
How many? Okay, hang on a sec. How many went through violent experience at home?
Then at 28, he learned to read. It turned his life around. But he is still able to see himself in the faces of these kids.
They've come in the door after they've been beaten up or they've been robbed, or they walk the streets all night, and they walk in the door here at 9 o'clock in the morning, I want to do a lesson. Then you have to feel something for people like that. You have to feel good about that. And when you lose it, you just think about such a waste. We've had 5 kids that have died that have been in this program. And some have hit us a lot harder than others. I mean, really hit, where we just had to take time off, like a couple of days off, and yell and scream and cry because you've lost somebody. Because it doesn't take much time to get close when you work with somebody.
The story of Beat the Street began when Tracy LeQuyere realized there weren't many prospects for an ex-convict who can't read. He enrolled at Frontier College, an adult education center. He was working at the time for an ex-offender's job placement program where he'd met up with Parsons, who'd helped find work for several ex-cons. They decided to become partners. But it wasn't some scam they were cooking up. They were going to hustle literacy. The way he described it was that you're the hustler and he's the con.
Now there you go, you see. You're pretending it's not true. I never hustled anybody. Hustler. I was a hustler. I mean, I was a pool hustler. I was a card shark. That's how I made my living. You know, hustling pool. And this one here, conning. You could sell a fridge to an Eskimo.
I like this image of two really tough guys suddenly becoming do-gooders.
It's not true, though, because when we went to the street to start this literacy program, we were mad. We were mad at the system, knowing that bag ladies, punk rockers, and bikers were out there being missed. And there was no literacy program in this country or the world that I knew about that was helping people on the street.
Beat the Street sticks to basics. Some kids come here to learn to read, most to catch up on their grades, learn new skills. It's a self-help academy, dependent on money begged from private sponsors and government, and the skills of kids themselves. Kids teaching kids.
Do you want to try to figure it out on our own, too? Yeah. Okay, so we add it all up. 459.
For what?
459.
Beat the Street is a self-help group. If you had to, give it a one line, it's a self-help group. It's a place where people can come in and feel a part of something.
Don't forget the decimal points, eh? You can put the decimal points in after.
We give people a choice, and the choice is up to them. What do you want? What do you need from us? And how can we help? When you start asking people, what is it we can do for you, that's a change, as opposed to this is what I'm going to do to you, and if you don't conform, you're out. We don't do that.
She's going to kill me. Oh, wow.
In this place here, Beat the Street, we believe anybody can learn. What is this whole program about? It's a place to belong where these kids fit in. They don't fit in anywhere else. This is the last house on the block for these kids.
Wayne.
Business management. I know.
You're taking business management?
Yes.
And what's that word there? That word there is this.
The students come from all over, rich homes, the suburbs, small towns. They progress by taking correspondence courses or teaching each other, by sharing their skills.
Okay.
As a child, Dennis was labeled retarded and was locked up in an institution for the criminally insane. What he is, it turns out, is a good mathematician. So now he volunteers his time while studying to be an accountant.
Why do you want to improve your reading?
Why?
Yeah.
I want to get something with my life.
Roy is 22. He wants to be a trucker like his dad. His teacher, Anita, is 19. Roy is one of the 5 million people in this country who is functionally illiterate. He can't follow the instructions on a medicine bottle. He can't circle the expiry date on his driver's license.
I know my street signs because I have a license.
What kind of a license?
Car license.
You can drive?
Yeah.
So if you drive up to a sign that says no left turn between the hours of 9 and 6, you know you're able to read?
I know what the signs look like because I study on the signs.
Oh, you memorize it, not because you can read it?
No, I couldn't. I can't read it.
I see.
But I remember it, what the signs looks like.
LeQuyere built up an elaborate defense to hide his lack of skills. He knows the frustrations that go along with illiteracy.
My first experience on the subway was a frightening one because I didn't know where to get off. So what I finally eventually did is hung around people who could take the train. So I had buddies that could take the train from Jane Street, say, to Yonge Street, and I just followed them. Once I knew that it was Yonge Street that we were getting off on, I'd count the stops.
Visualize this. You're 16 years old. You can't read, you can't write. You can't read the subway stops, you can't read none of this stuff. And all of a sudden, you're spit out in the street, and they say, get a job. Don't you understand? That's what people are saying nowadays. Why don't you get a job? Why doesn't these bums get a job? Get a job. I can't fill out the application. I don't know what damn street I'm sitting on. So how am I going to do that in the world of print?
So you were an angry young punk.
Well, I was more like angry is one part of it, frustrated, and felt that I would never measure up. I wanted to be good at something, so I was getting good at being bad.
By the time he was 16, LeQuyere was out of school and in jail. He still goes back to places like the Vanier Center for Young Offenders, hoping his story might set them straight.
4 times a year, 3 times a year, I was charged with robberies, okay? I was charged with D&Es, car theft, auto theft, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, fraud, forgery, uttering, breaking and entering, stabbing, wounding, assault, narcotics, just went on. So when I was walking the halls of...
He tells them, cut the tough act and get an education.
I thought I was bad, and I thought it was cool. But I'll tell you how cool I really was. I couldn't spell the word because. I had a hard time even writing my name, okay? How many here, okay, instead of saying how many here can't read and write, that's not what I'm going to ask. How many here would like a hand getting help with reading and writing and stuff? Who needs a hand with the basics? Just raise your hand.
If they don't catch up on their education, many of these kids will take the same ride LeQuyere did, directly to jail. Half the people who are locked up show serious deficiencies in reading, maths, and language. Alan Gardens in Toronto. Ace, a young runaway, sleeps off the hash he took that morning. Street kids mill about, waiting for curfew time at the neighboring hostel. There was a time Rick Parsons owned this park. It was his territory. After being beaten by his mother and stepfather, then passed from institution to institution, Parsons ended up here, illiterate, angry, and violent.
Town Gardens became my world. That's where you were 24 hours a day, unless you're going to rumble or you're going to screw around somewhere. For 20-some-odd years out here, it was the only place that I can control my own destiny. I guess the only place that I can control my surroundings, the only place or the only way that I can keep people away from me. People have papers for achievement, and I have papers that say that I'm below average intelligent, not fit for society. I spent 7 months in Sick Children's Hospital and a mental institution there, up on the 7th floor, categorized as being retarded. I had epilepsy, and I didn't know it was epilepsy, and I didn't know until I got my files what it was. According to a social service report, I got a baseball bat in the face. And I guess it was from my mom. When I read the files, I was so angry. I mean, well, I'll tell you how angry was I. I was in St. Jerome. I called my wife up in Beaubien, which is where we were living. And I said, "You won't believe this." And I read her what it said in the file, and I destroyed the phone booth. I mean, I just literally blew up and destroyed the phone booth. I was that angry. Had I had a gun in my hand and my mother was next to me, I would have blown her away.
You say that because you were angry. Were you really the...
So no problem whatsoever. No problems.
It sounds as if you were just...
Starting to beat the street meant that I became my first person. The first person to look after, the first person to work with was myself. I guess I was the first street kid to walk to my own doors, and the first one to get the most help from my own program.
You always keep your hand on the street. I mean, no matter what you do. Whenever I travel or I'm doing speaking engagements or whatever city I'm in, no matter where I went to Washington and do some speaking out there. The first thing I did that night was go out and do street work. I mean, it's something about yourself that's in you.
There's no doubt that we're polished more now. Well, one time we'd walk into a school and say, "It's your fault! It's your fault, teachers!" And then now we had to pull up a bit because the school board is giving us some money, things are doing, you know, so yes, we are polished a bit more.
Is that polished or just being bought off by the system? Now they're giving you some money, so you're backing off.
No, not back off, but just be a little bit more nicer.
Nice enough to be awarded the Order of Canada.
They're gonna think you're somebody pretty special.
Well, I am. The street kid. Street kid goes to redo hole.
Well, I don't know, finest street kid I ever seen.
A moment of vindication for Rick's wife, Carol.
So what do you think? Should I wear the hat?
No, not really.
Too much like a gangster?
Not really.
And a moment of pride for Tracy's mother.
Of all the women that's ever supported me, you've been supporting me the longest.
True.
Well,
You've arrived. Quite a nice place.
They have come a long way from illiterate thugs to successful educators.
whoever thought street kids would be here?
Now they're working as consultants to beat the street and wearing suits.
Yeah, that's the other thing, eh?
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, we may be going through the ritual, but they're the ones that deserve it.
Well, you made it, son.
I'm just gonna wear my hat. Glad I didn't. I'd be the only person here with it.
Mr. Tracy LeQuyere, co-founder of Toronto's Upstart, Beat the Street program at Frontier College, designed to combat illiteracy. He has fought and won a personal battle against being written off in the universe of words. Mr. Richard Joseph Parsons. He continues to help those who have been overlooked by an educational system. He has inspired learners with his individualized teaching techniques and his personal experiences. He has achieved success with untold numbers in a forum where many others have failed, and continues to profoundly influence the fight against illiteracy.
But on the streets of downtown Toronto, it's business as usual. The number of kids on the street always swells over the summer months. There are always new faces in a community which Rick and Tracy are convinced is becoming increasingly isolated, increasingly at risk. Living on the street is often a quick ticket to hospital or to jail. Roy, the aspiring trucker who can't read a street sign, was back behind bars just 3 weeks after we met him.
You told me everything was going really well and you were going to turn things around. You think it's possible? You told me you're going to learn how to read, you're going to get that trucker's license.
It's possible, yeah, when I get out. I could go back to it again.
Will you?
Yeah, I will, yeah.
Does what you do make a difference, or is it just spitting in the wind? Does it change anything?
Well, I think on a personal note, right, it has changed me. Reading and writing. I'm more employable in that. So now, okay, but no, there's a lot of kids, though. Beat the Street, you can look at it as a grab bag. If a kid comes in and learns one word, he takes a correspondence course, no matter what he does, visualize that you have hookers, bag ladies, punk rockers, even in the learning center, thinking about learning is success in our eyes. What we're saying is that we're part of the solution to the problems. That's why this is the only program in the country that's got street kids helping street kids, bag ladies helping bag ladies. Educators will look at you and say, excuse me, you mean to tell me that a 19-year-old hooker can help someone better than I can? And I'd say yes.